Hello and welcome to Love Talks. My name is Eva Montebello and I'm really excited to be joined by co-founder of ABLED, Lori Keegan. And ABLED stands for?
A Better Learning and Education.
Great. And tell me, what is ABLED all about?
We're a special education advocacy group, and we help parents navigate the special education world of the public school.
Okay, great. So, now, what constitutes special education? Is that like an IEP or the
504?
504.
So technically special education is an IEP, but we can also help with 504.
Okay.
That's a different law. It's not necessarily an education law, it's the American with Disabilities Law.
Oh, got it.
And so that just covers accommodations in the school.
Okay.
But an IEP is specially designed instruction.
Okay, what does IEP stand for?
Individual Education Plan.
Okay, got it. Now, what if you think your kid may need an IEP, but they're not on one now? Can you tell us a little bit about how you go about, starting the process?
Absolutely. The first thing you do is you email the special education office of your district, so in this case Haverhill, and you say that you want a full special education evaluation. And once that's in writing, they must test the child, and they have to evaluate to see if the child requires special education.
Gotcha. And what are all the different categories that they test in?
Typically it's social emotional, academics,
physical is one of them.
Physical
right?
therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, and any other issue that the child might have.
Okay.
So if there are medical issues, they're supposed to have a nurse come in and do some testing, or they take testing from doctors.
Yep. Now, why did you even create ABLED?
Well, it started when my oldest was going to kindergarten. She was diagnosed with autism. She also had a complex medical condition. And I went to the school and they said, "Oh, she doesn't have autism in school." I'm like, "What do you mean she doesn't have autism in school?" And so it started the fight of getting my child what she needed in school. And so as I tried to learn everything I possibly could, I read laws. I even brought the law book into my IEP meeting with me and was reading the laws to the special education director, and nothing worked.
Right.
And so at that point I decided I needed an advocate. Right. And so I found this perfect person, really truly the perfect advocate. And I went up to him and I said, "Do you go to meetings?" He's like, "Absolutely." And I'm like, "Great, how much do you cost?" And he said, $150 an hour.
Yikes.
And who can afford that?
Right.
And I wasn't considered poor at the time. I was, middle class.
Right.
But I couldn't afford that. I have 4 kids, all 4 have special needs.
Right.
All my money was going into their therapies.
Right.
And so I went and got trained as an advocate, came back, advocated for my own kids, and decided that I wanted to help people, and I wanted to help people who couldn't afford the $150 an hour.
Right.
So I started a nonprofit with my best friend.
Nice.
So we co-founded it together. And she also went to the training with me because she had gone to all of my IEP meetings with my kids. And she's like, "This is crazy."
Right.
So we both got trained. We decided to start a nonprofit with the mission to help people afford advocacy.
Right. Can you tell us a couple stories maybe of some of the challenges that you see and how people overcame those challenges?
Sure. I think the biggest challenge in getting your child the services is that the school district has a budget that they have to stay in. And so in order to figure out how to give you services, they have to consider their budget. That's just reality. It's not necessarily part of the law, but that's reality.
Right.
And so understanding that they have their own financial constraints and trying to work with them within their limits and understanding what the school districts can truly do and what they can't.
Right.
And so a lot of our work with parents is working with them to set their expectations realistically of, the school district cannot give your kid a pony, right?
Right.
They're not going to give you everything that you want.
Right.
And trying to figure out what's actually best for your child. A lot of parents come to us and say, "I want a one-on-one for my kid."
Right.
But there are drawbacks to one-on-ones. Right? And kids get dependent on one-on-ones.
Right.
And so lots of times, unless it's really a medical issue, it's not in the child's actual best interest to have a one-on-one.
Okay, gotcha.
You know, and so it's really talking and figuring out, what does the child need, and what can we go to the school and say, hey, how do we work together and get this done?
Right.
Because the best way to actually get something done is to work with the school.
Right.
If you're constantly fighting, if you're screaming in meetings, if you're arguing, absolutely nothing is going to get done.
Right.
And so you try to find common ground and you try to work with that and expand on that.
Yep.
And we have really good results.
Nice.
You know? I mean, we've had kids go out of district. We've had kids stay in district and get the help they need.
Right.
You know, it's
Right.
really whatever that child needs.
Because certain schools can't handle certain things, right?
Absolutely.
And some schools are probably better at one version of the IEP than others.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, how do you find out about all of those kind of internal city resources? Are there any like kind of citywide connections?
So most districts have some sort of list of their services
Yep.
and their programs.
Okay.
You know, for instance, like Haverhill has an autism program. They have an alternative school.
Yep.
But they also have other programs within each individual school.
Okay.
And so once you figure out what the kid needs, it's do they actually need a program and
Yep.
be moved to a different school?
Yep.
Or can they be in the general ed population and just get the services they need in their home school?
Gotcha. And it's probably always better to keep your kid in one single school.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay.
Right.
Right. So what age groups have you served?
So we work with kids from age 3 to 22.
Oh, wow. It's a
and-
big range.
Right. So that's where public school comes in.
Okay.
So early intervention
Yeah.
does 0 to 3.
Yeah.
Once that child turns 3, they're in the public school system.
Okay, got it.
And early intervention is very much kid-centered and all about the kid and what does the kid need, and it's
Right.
very individualized.
Right.
But when you make that transition into preschool, into the public school, it's how do you fit into our program?
Right.
And it's no longer the parent is the expert, it's the school is the expert and the parent just hands off their child.
Gotcha.
You know,
Yeah.
and so it's really unsettling for the parent, for
Right.
sure.
Right. Now, do you also teach parents how to advocate?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, our goal is to work ourselves out of a job.
Right.
You know, we teach parents how to do the process.
Gotcha.
And the way we work is we will help a parent write a letter, and then it's the parent's job to send the letter, to bring it to the SPED department, to
Yeah.
get a date stamped,
Yep.
and have those communications with the school. So it's
Gotcha.
coming from them, not from us.
Gotcha.
And so each step they're learning how to communicate and how to get along with the school and
Gotcha.
to work that relationship, because the reality is when we're gone, they still have that relationship with the
Right,
school.
right.
In addition to that, unless you plan on moving, it's a marriage that there is no divorce.
Right.
So you have to figure out how to get along. Even if your child's out of district, you're still dealing with the district.
Gotcha.
And so your best bet is to get along and figure things out together.
Yeah. So you're like an advocacy coach.
Exactly.
You're like, go out into the court or field.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we'll go to the meetings for sure,
Yeah.
and we'll talk in the meetings, and we'll be there.
Yeah.
We'll be there all the way.
Right.
You know, but it's
But you're not in their pocket all the time. You know, it's not like you have a
Correct.
pocket Lori to
Right.
pull out and be like, hey, I just got a phone call. Yeah.
right. So
So
you know,
really, like teaching parents how to truly, truly advocate for their kids and
Yes.
understanding the systems.
yes.
Yep. Now, what about, are there other alternatives besides, like, do some parents go outside the system entirely and say, you know what, forget it, I'm just going to homeschool, or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There are lots of parents that do that.
Really?
And the thing is that if you're homeschooling your child, you still have the right to special education in the district.
Interesting.
And so you can do the homeschooling at home, and you
Yep.
can still bring your child in for speech therapy or
Oh,
occupational therapy or social skills.
Yep.
You can also, if you're homeschooling, you can have the kid participate in gym class.
Nice.
So there's ways to integrate special needs in, even if you're homeschooling.
Right, right.
know.
And, you know, sometimes special needs are invisible, and sometimes they're very visible.
Yes.
You know, we both have worked with L'Arche, Jen Matthews over there. And, you know, some people are invisibly disabled, and some
Yes.
people are visibly disabled,
Yes.
or differently abled.
Correct.
How, you know. So what do you do, like, what's the range? You've mentioned autism, you've mentioned medical. Is
Yep.
dyslexia still a thing?
Absolutely.
It used to be a big thing.
It is a big thing, and
Yep.
school districts struggle with it,
Okay.
honestly. There's dyslexia, there's We've dealt with Down syndrome.
ADHD probably.
Absolutely ADHD. What else?
I think speech therapy, I think when
definitely
children aren't talking.
We've dealt with a legally blind child.
Wow.
You know, we've
deaf.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
You know, it really ranges.
Yep.
And every kid has something different. We had one child who had a degenerative cerebral palsy.
Wow.
And so even though he could do this today, tomorrow he might not be able to do it.
Right.
And so, you know, it's making sure that he gets the physical therapy,
Right.
you know, and not just say, well, he's going to get worse over time, so why bother?
Right.
You know?
Right. Now, if you have, say that I had a disabled child, you know, and I'm a friend and you're watching this show, you know, and you have a friend who's struggling with this. Do you have any advice for friends to support their other friends that they care about?
Absolutely. Make sure that your friend never goes to an IEP meeting alone.
Gotcha.
Always bring somebody. It doesn't matter who.
Yeah.
Your next door neighbor, your friend, your mom, anybody.
Yeah.
And have them take notes.
Gotcha.
But just never ever go alone.
Gotcha.
You want somebody else hearing what's being said.
Yeah.
And my next advice is try really hard not to get upset.
Right.
I know it's your own child and it's really hard, and trust me, I've burst into tears during meetings before.
I've definitely burst into tears in meetings too.
So
about my child.
It's hard.
I get it. Yeah.
But you know, try to keep yourself composed. Don't get angry. Don't argue. The meetings aren't there to be screaming at each other. It's
Right.
not worth it.
Right.
Gather your information from the meeting, listen, hear what they're trying to say to you, take lots of really good notes,
Right.
leave the meeting, think about it, write a really nice letter,
Yeah.
and explain your differences.
Oh, that's a nice way to do it.
It's much more effective,
Yeah.
and then the school can take what you don't agree with,
Yeah.
they can have a meeting, they can look at all the things that you don't agree with,
Yeah.
then they can call you back in and say, okay, we can do this, this, and this, we really can't do this.
Okay.
And it works out much better to have it on paper than to be upset and emotional in the meeting.
Right, right, totally makes sense. So you coach people, you coach parents around advocacy. Who are people's support system within the school system? I mean, I would imagine the school committee, I would imagine the teaching staff, I would imagine administration. Like who can you tap into? You know, once they understand the process and how to get things moving, who are the different groups of people that can help you get the results that you want to accomplish with your child?
So it all starts with a team, and the team consists of yourself, a regular ed teacher, a special ed teacher, and any service providers like OT, speech, PT.
Okay.
And you have a meeting.
Okay.
If you can't get anywhere with that team, then your next step is to go to the special ed director of the district.
Okay.
And have a conversation and say, listen, you know, this isn't working. Well, what do we do?
Right.
You know, how do we figure this out? Could you please come to my next meeting?
Right.
Because nothing in special ed can be determined individually. It has to be determined in the team meeting.
Gotcha.
And so the special ed director can't make decisions outside the team meeting, but they certainly can listen to you, understand you, and attend your next meeting.
Gotcha.
And really try to facilitate that conversation.
Yeah. And what's the next level?
After that, depending on what it is, if you still don't agree, if the district is breaking the law, then there's a problem resolution system through the state that you can file a complaint with. If they're not breaking the law or they're not providing what the IEP says, then your next step is either mediation or something called SPEDX.
Okay.
And what SPEDX does is they assign a person to you. They'll come in, they'll take a look at your child's program, they'll speak with you, they'll speak with the school, they'll look at the IEPs that have been developed. They'll go and they'll observe the child, and they'll decide whether or not the child is getting a free and appropriate public education.
Gotcha.
And they'll write up a report and they'll send it to both of you. That has to be agreed on by both the parent and the school. So the school can say, no, we don't want to do that process.
Got it.
The nice thing about SPEDX is that report is admissible at hearing if you need to go to hearing.
Okay.
The other choice is mediation, where a neutral party comes in, sits with you from the state, and lets both sides talk. You go off into two separate rooms, and then the mediator will come to you, talk to you about, you know, what it is you want. Then they'll take what you want, go to the school, say this is what they want. The school says, okay, this is what we'll give, comes back to you, this is what they'll give. Do you accept it? No, but here's my counteroffer.
Yeah.
And
it's like a divorce.
Yes, it really is. But they're very neutral, they don't take sides.
Yep.
And that process also has to be agreed on
Yeah.
between the school and the parent.
Yep.
Those processes are completely free
Yep.
to the district and to the parents.
Yep.
And if you can't get it solved then the next step is a hearing.
Gotcha.
And a hearing really requires a lawyer, and so it starts to get really expensive.
Okay.
And
So it's really in your best interest
to solve
to
the
really
problems
work it out.
before then.
Yeah.
And so if we try to work it out so that we eliminate the problems before we even get there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like we really try to work with the districts
Right.
and make sure that the problems get resolved because
Right.
it's in everybody's best interest and it's in the best interest of the child.
Right, right. Now, there's also, I know that in Haverhill, we have a group called CPAC.
Yes.
Now, what is that all about?
So every district has to have a CPAC, and it's by law.
Yep.
They are created. They have to exist.
Okay.
And
Is it a physical group? Because I know we have a group on Facebook, but I've never met
Yeah.
anybody in the group.
Right. No, it has to be real people.
Okay.
That consist of this, and they have to have
Okay.
officers.
Okay.
And what their role is to participate in the special education programs and to basically know what's going on, be the program eyes and ears.
Yeah. Is it kind of like the PTA of special ed, or how would you categorize
It's
it?
more like an arm of the school committee, really.
Okay, got
They
it.
report to the school committee. They
Okay.
should be going to the school committee once a month
Yep.
and telling the school committee, these are the programs that we have. This is working. This isn't working.
Yeah.
Really from, an eyes and ears of the parents.
Yeah.
Most districts, the CPAC doesn't really do that.
Right.
What they do is they hold meetings. They'll hold trainings, and oftentimes they'll have like outings or something like that
Okay.
to get special needs kids together.
Right.
And sometimes they'll have coffees for moms who want to get together and
Right.
talk about their special needs kids.
Right.
But really, what they're supposed to be doing
Yeah.
is understanding what's going on in the district for special education and reporting to the school committee.
Gotcha.
That's what they're mandated to do.
Okay, cool. Now, in your experience, it sounds like you have a lot of success in helping parents advocate.
We've had a lot of success, I have to say.
Yeah, and what happens if you get stuck? Like, have you been like stuck in cases where you're like,
Absolutely.
and what are the situations? You know what I mean? Almost like how do I stay away from those type of situations?
Right. So I think the worst situations that we get into is when the relationship between the school and the parent has degraded so drastically
Yeah.
that it's hard to repair.
Like you get to it after.
Right.
Yeah.
And so trying to repair those relationships is really difficult.
Right.
And sometimes the school is just not doing what the kid needs.
Right.
And at that point, when we know that this is a case that has to go to hearing, we have to pass it off to a lawyer. We
Got
don't
it.
feel that it's our job to take it. It's not in our kids' best interest
Yep.
to take it to hearing with an advocate
Right.
because the school district has lawyers.
Right.
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 And so, in most cases that I've had to give to a lawyer,
Yeah.
we've been able to find pro bono lawyers that are willing to take the cases because they're low-income families.
Yeah.
And what happens is, Dawn and I will do all the legwork, and like the behind-the-scenes stuff
Yeah.
that takes a lot of time for the lawyers to
Right,
do.
right.
And so we stay on the case. We work for the lawyer, basically,
Yeah.
doing all the background sort
Yeah.
of work.
Like the research and, the data
and
gathering.
the photocopying and like all
Yeah.
that stuff that takes a lot of time.
Right.
And so that way it reduces the amount of time that the lawyer has to spend.
Yeah.
And we're able to keep the costs low that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, $150 an hour adds up.
Right. And
Like,
that's just for an advocate. That's not even a lawyer.
right.
Right.
When how much do lawyers go for? Probably 3, 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a good $300 or $400. You're a good
Yes.
lawyer.
Right.
Yeah.
So-
Now, what else? You have a training coming up, don't you?
We do.
Okay.
So part of our mission is to train parents.
Yeah.
And we, so every 2 years,
Yeah.
we try to host Pete Wright, who
Yeah.
is known really well throughout the country. His website's Wright's Law.
Yeah.
He's like the expert in special ed across the country.
Yeah.
And he comes in and he gives a 2-day conference
Yeah.
to train parents on special education law, how to tricks and tips on how to advocate for your child in meetings. And this year we've asked them to focus on mental illness and things like that, because behavioral issues in the classroom, because we're seeing many cases come up with mental illness as a big problem popping up. Yeah.
What about bullying? Does that get dealt with through this?
So it does. Bullying is a tricky one because the school districts don't like to admit that there's bullying going on. And so they'll say, well, okay, this kid was mean to you, but it doesn't rise to the level of actual bullying.
Right. What's bullying? 3 incidences, right?
It has to be more than one.
Okay.
Legally, it has to be more than one. Yeah. But what's interesting is it has to be done by the same kid, but it doesn't necessarily have to be done to the same person. So the person can be a bully by doing the same thing to different people.
Got it.
And so it's difficult to get the law met at this point.
Right.
But certainly when you have special needs students in their IEP, we say, could they be a victim of bullying, or could they be a bully?
Right.
Because some of our behavioral kids can actually be bullies.
Right.
And so we need to make sure that in the IEP they're protected.
Right.
And
on both sides.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
And you know, a lot of times we need to make sure that everybody's safe.
Right.
You know, and we make sure that. I have one case where, you know, I'm sitting in a meeting and I'm like, listen, this kid is dangerous.
Right.
We need to make sure the class is safe. We need to make sure this kid is safe. We need to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Right.
You know, and they thank you afterwards. They're like, thank you for being so honest, you know, because they have to deal with the situation.
Right.
You know?
Yep. Now, can you tell us another, case study that where something really worked?
One thing, so one of our cases with ADHD, the child was having a really hard time making sure their backpack was organized.
Okay.
And they weren't bringing home their homework, they weren't bringing home the right books, they weren't doing anything. And so one of the things we recommended was, okay, instead of having this child's backpack checked every day and singling them out and making them feel like bad about themselves, what if you implemented in the classroom that everybody's sitting down with their backpacks, trade backpacks, and it's your responsibility to make sure that the other kid's backpack has the right stuff in it.
Yeah.
And so you're teaching all of the kids the skill, not just singling out that one child.
Right, but you're also teaching them how to work together.
Correct.
How to be a team.
Yes. And so, we try to come up with solutions like that where it doesn't cost any money, but it's teaching the kid the skill that they need in a way that doesn't single them out.
Right. That's actually one of the things that I always think about, and I think I just shared this on my Facebook page just recently, is like, why don't we take out one class that nobody ever uses? Somebody always recommends some math class, which I used to love. But and really teach, how to balance your checkbook and how to do all these things, and it's really like or how to, vote, how to advocate for yourself in the voting world, and even as a young person, and how to follow politics, because I feel like there was a long time where there's don't ever talk about religion or politics, and now what do we have? We have a society that doesn't know anything about it, know anything about civics. So it's really a lot of common sense stuff that you do.
Right.
But it sounds like you also give parents and families the courage.
We try really hard
to
help them know what to say.
Right.
We'll coach them behind the scenes and say, you know what, you need to send an email. This is what the email needs to say.
Yeah.
Go send that.
Right. Are some people really afraid?
They are.
Yeah.
They really are. But once they get used to it and they get used to doing it on their own, it works out really well.
Yeah.
And every letter we write, it's from the parent. It's not from us.
Right.
And it's not like, oh, I have an advocate who knows the law. It doesn't matter. Right? That's irrelevant. It's how do we get along with the school? How do we make it work? And how do we get the best thing for the kid?
Right. Yep. And so you have this one big seminar every couple years.
Yes.
Do you also have any other groups, and how do we find you?
So we're on Facebook.
Okay.
Where we have a website, abledadvocacy.org.
And what's your Facebook page?
Abled Advocacy.
Okay, got it.
And then We have a phone number.
Perfect. Awesome.
All the information's on the website to reach us.
Okay. Do you ever go to like fairs or anything like that?
We do occasionally go to some fairs.
Okay.
And we also do trainings for parent groups.
Oh, perfect.
So we can go and talk to groups and do a training on an interest topic of theirs.
Yep. Perfect. That's great. And what communities do you serve?
We serve the Merrimack Valley from Lowell to Amesbury.
Oh, wow.
So our biggest 3 cities that we work in are Lowell, Lawrence, and Haverhill.
Oh, perfect.
So we're in Haverhill a lot.
Yeah.
Actually, our biggest population is actually in Haverhill.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that. Haverhill's a favorite of mine. Great. So if you are interested or you have a child that you think may need an IEP or a 504 or any special services in schools, please feel free to go to the Abled Advocacy Facebook page or website and learn more from Lori and their group. Thank you so much. We're excited to have you at Love Talks, and my name is Eva Montebello, and we'll see you next time around. Thanks a lot.